there, fellow wargamers. It's the Sentinel from across the tabletop. I noticed the other day, while being the Imperial Fist enthusiastic that I am, and the fact that I love Imperial Fist and the lore behind them, and Dawn, and the Great Wall, and the defense of Terror. I collect Imperial Fists, and I'm quite an avid collector. I think I've got over like 1,000 minis, of just purely Space Marines and Imperial Fists. I am branching out at new armies, but nothing on the worktop at the moment. I'm building some heavy intercessors, and I've seen on the Facebook page for the Imperial Fist, on some of the Facebook pages, that people are interested in how to paint yellow, because the contrast paints aren't actually, I mean, they bring out more of an orange than a yellow. So yeah, I wasn't entirely thrilled about the orange and the yellow. I mean, you can't really tell on the picture, I suppose, on here, but that's a contrast painted one, and yeah, it looks okay. But when you put it up against one that I did in a different style, where the yellow is just a little bit sharper. You get a little bit sharper yellow. So I just wanted to go through how I achieved that today. So I'm going to do a quick run through of how I achieved that. So I put some minis together. These are the heavy intercessors for my new army. I say new army, for the army, for a tournament that I'm going to. It's a team tournament, so hopefully that'll be cool. These are the assault intercessors, the assault heavy intercessors. I prefer to have the assault weapon systems because it gives you more movability on the board, and as the game is all about board control, I don't want to be too stationary with too many of my minis. So pretty much my whole army tries as much as possible to, so I have one unit at the back and then everything else moves up in the flanks, in the centre, whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just warfare for you. So first off, I've put the minis together, did the base separately, and I've started working on the base already, because when it comes to just painting these, what I'll do is I'll take the blue tack off this, I'll put the blue tack on here. I have a painting, GW painting thing, so I'll just put some blue tack on them, take them outside, and I'll give them a spray of white. But what I've done is the head comes off, he says, there you go, the head comes off, just dropped it on the floor. The head will come off. I'll put it in there for when spray painting. I'll take it off when doing the details. So it'll be glued onto the stick like that, ready for spray. Then I'll attach that onto another device I've created, which I can't put to hand at the moment. Okay, and then what we're going to have is I've created using, say, a roller from when you get, this is cardboard that we got from a tin foil roll, from when you get your tin foil, what was left over. And all I've done is you get some bigger ones. So there was a bigger one I found, I cut it in half, I put some styrofoam in the bottom of it, some rubber bands just to keep it on, and then I've put some holes in it. And essentially this is designed for spraying just when I want my undercoats on him. So there you go, I'll attach a piece on there with some blue tack. I'll do all the arms, because all the arms come off on these, and I'll attach them all on, and I'll spray them separately, so it gives me the best chance to coat the mini in the white and then the yellow, and that way then when assembling the mini later on, it's easier to paint when they come apart. Of all the details that I like to do, I mean, there are some massive fantastic YouTubers out there that do paint jobs that show you how to cut corners, which is fine, perfectly fine. I like cutting corners, but when it comes to Imperial Fist, they're quite simple when I show you the technique I use. So, and hopefully it'll help some of you out there on how to get the yellow that you're looking for. If it's not this yellow, or the way that I do it, at least I'm hoping that it'll help you find your own technique. I mean, this is just a power sword from an old Marine that I've just slided down the back of his pack, just to represent that he says, I can't get it out now. Yeah, there you go. So that's just one of the old power swords you get from an old set from the guys, and if he's got a power sword equipped to him or not, there you go, just put it back in there so I don't lose it. He says no, it's not sticking. There you go. Yeah, I think it looks cool. It has his power sword tucked down his back of his pack. Magnetized, obviously, because if his pack moves, it's going to fall out. We don't want that. So yeah, you can do all sorts of things. I'm hoping this will help anyway. Okay, let's get to it then. So all the minis are built as per the instructions, or whatever way you want to do it. I've combined, just for the rule of cool, a Thunderhammer to my Intercessor Sergeant. Yes, stats wise he can't have it, but I think it just looks cool. And he'll look nice on the battlefield, and it'll be easy to represent who the Sergeant is, who, you know, and all that sort of good stuff. And then when they do update the rule sets in, like, you know, the next edition or the next two codexes, and he can take a Thunderhammer, he'll have one. I've gone with the heavy weapon system on the Intercessor, but I'm not going to glue his arms down when they're finished, and I'm going to make another one because it's 10 points upgrade, and you just never know. You know, I don't have 6 of them, I've only got the 5, so I'll just add 2 more arms on and do it that way. I did buy the upgrade pack, so he has got the Imperial Fist upgrade pack on the side, and then a blank one on the other side to represent the thing. And then because he's a sergeant, I've given him a veterans pack on the other arm. I was trying to get one of the Terminator arms on there, but all I could find was an Inquisition one, so I've just took the Inquisition sign off and left the skull on there, and we'll see how that turns up. It might need some more cleaning up, but he's classified as a veteran, therefore he's able to take Terminator armor. Okay, or Gravis Mark 10 armor in this case. So yeah, we'll come back once I've got them all prepped and ready for spraying, and I'll show you that step. Prepped all my minis for spraying. Essentially what I've done is I've taken them off the bases, because I started the bases. Normally I would glue, I put blue tack on the bases, and then the bases would all slit in there with the rubber bands, but I've done slightly something different. Started on the bases first. So the model itself has got a little bit of blue tack. Now you can do this with a tiny little bit of glue, super glue. I'm knowing some others, you know, other people use other types of things to get them to stick. You can use lollipop sticks if you want to. That's quite helpful because it gives you the freedom of moving just that one piece. But this is a GW product that I got for a birthday or Christmas or something like that. So essentially it's got a handle on the end and then some space that you put some minis on, and when you're spraying it allows you just to move it around. So that's my 5 miniatures with no arms. They've all got the heads on, so they're all going to get a good spray, and then we'll move on. So what I did then with the arms, you know, is I created this little piece of again, it's just similar to what I use for the minis. I can hold it, I can move it up and around. They've got some wooden sticks, some blue tack on them, and it allows me just to get a good spray all over. Okay, be back after I've sprayed them. Welcome back. We sprayed yesterday with a white primer onto our heavy intercessors. So this is what they look. I know I haven't got the greatest lighting in here, and I am working on upgrading that, but that is a white primer essentially. Now I've left them overnight to dry just to ensure that all of the coverage is done to the best of my ability. So that's all the bodies done, all 5 bodies. And then using my makeshift spray handle, I've been able to get all of the guns and the weapons and all. Where's my hand going? There, yeah, as you can see, all of the guns are done, the arms, so they're all separated, and that'll be easier then when it comes to filling out the details or increasing the efficiency on my part, because you do make a lot of mistakes when painting, and if you can minimize the amount of mistakes, then the faster you can paint. So that's my logic behind it. So what the plan is now is to get a yellow sorted out onto my wet palette. Now my wife bought me this, which is the best thing I have ever been bought or used in my life, which is a wet palette. You know, you get this little foam, you get this little material like cotton, you know, at the bottom of your pad. You put some water in it. You know, it's drying out a little bit because I used it yesterday, so we'll just add a little bit of water, let it soak into the cotton. As you can see, there's a little bit on there, but it will just disappear because it will get soaked in. There you go. So it's soaked in now. Army Painter then produced, they've got multiple. That's my second one, so if this one ever runs out or breaks, I've got a second one here that I can just put in and away it goes. And then you have a little filament on top, which is almost like a grease-proof paper, essentially. So you get, but of course this is white, so it's easier to use because you can see your colour palette. And it just sits on there. And all it does, it just reduces the paint from, it keeps it cold and damp, essentially, but without interference from the water thinning it out. And it just keeps the paint that you're using fresher. And last a little bit longer, so you can use it for longer. So that's my wet palette sorted. I'm using a flash kit yellow from GW. It doesn't matter which one, the layer. I think that's an old part, and this is the newer one here. But I use this. I did start. Of course, I have used the Uriel yellow, which is what they primarily tell you to use. But as you can tell, just even in the dark. Even in the dark, you can see there's a slightly different tint in the pigment. So, you know, the flash kit yellow is just, well, it's more yellow in my opinion over the other one. And I can show you, you know, in some older minis what I mean about the flash kit yellow versus the Uriel yellow. So that's an old Baby Marine. I've got to sit down now, put stuff in the way now, come on. Sort this space out. So there we have a Baby Marine with Uriel yellow, very little highlighted on it, or it's just a base coat with, you know, very little done to it. Of course, this is the original paint scheme from the Baby Marines. And then I went on, when I got the Primaris, to try and find a faster and easier way, because the Uriel yellow doesn't go on very well. It's a bit thicker pigment. The paint doesn't spread as easier as I would like, and as I'm not a painter with the experience to do thinnings and spray and stuff like that, I am just a hobby, you know, enthusiast. I decided to try and use some different techniques, and I found that a white primer instead of a grey with a lighter yellow dry brushed on with 2 or 3 layers get me a better yellow finish over the Uriel one. So yeah, that's the difference. And as you can tell, that, you know, I, and hopefully you guys out there as well, would prefer to have your minis looking like this if you were doing Imperial Fist over the Uriel yellow orange. Of course, I could have added white, but I was still very young in the hobby when it comes to painting. You know, and after many years of collecting, you know, you can understand that I was a bit frustrated using that yellow. You know, it just didn't give me the results I wanted. I wasn't happy painting them, wasn't happy collecting them. I just wasn't overall thrilled with putting my minis on the table because of the way they looked. And now I've got my yellow that I like on my Marines. I'm sure other people will say that's not the way they would do it, but I'm happy with the result, and that's the main thing is if you are happy with the scheme that you are recreating on all of your minis, you've got to be happy with every single step and every single technique you're using to get the maximum enjoyment out of it. So, you know, what, 8 years, 9 years now I've been collecting, I want to say it's probably longer than that, 12 years I've been collecting Imperial Fists. So, to find, yeah, with a break in between, but yeah, well, if I had to break in between, let's go 20 years, 25 years. Let's go 25 years since I've been collecting Marines, well, playing Warhammer. And just, yeah, 25 years, and this is like in the last 2 years actually finding a paint scheme that I like to paint when it comes to my Imperial Fists. It just goes to show how much dedication I had to try to perfect the original. But yeah, so that's the yellow from that. So what we're going to do now is just take our pot of flash kit yellow, give it a good shake. Let's find a brush. We'll take the big brush. It's one of my big brushes I use for dry brushing. And this is probably not how most painters would do it, or professionals, but I'm not a professional, so I'm just going to get a load of yellow out. It's a lot of yellow, I know. And then I'm just going to add a dollop of water to it to try and thin it down. And all I'm trying to do is just trying to go for a technique of dry brushing. So I'm going to get this really thin. Then I'm going to get as much of the paint off as possible. You know. And the idea is not to try and, I don't want to try and leather my paint on heavy. I want to try and get it on as thin as possible. And this way it stays as light as possible on the model, and just allows me to keep that yellow vibrant throughout the whole model. And that's the intention, the aim. It's just to try and keep it as light and airy and as fast as possible. So I just took the blue tack off the feet, and what I mean is, you know, let's just try and get some more of that paint off. And all I'm doing is, what it'll do is it'll just keep the paint fresh on there, so I can use it later. And people might say this is a bit heavy-handed, but you know, I'm going to go back over it, and I'm going to just keep doing this until I'm happy with the coverage of where the yellow is. You know, backpack, I'm just going all over, and this might take some time, and you know, I'm not a spray painter, so you know, I don't have the skills just yet, or I haven't developed the skills, should we say. I don't have the skills. I haven't developed the skills for air painting or spray painting, you know. And this is just my technique that I find enjoyable. I find fast enough to be able to get through the minis I'm painting at the time, to get them on the table looking as good as I would like them to look better, but yeah, that takes more effort, and so I'm just trying to enjoy the effort that I put in, and the models and results that I get. You know, I have won a couple of best painted units out there for the Imperial Fists, so it's not like they're not competing with others, but they're not golden demon standard, should we say. Okay, so I'm going to take this away from the camera just a second to check it, because all I'm trying to do now is remove the additional excess paint that I've put into certain locations with the dry brushing technique that I'm using, and just trying to remove it so that yellow isn't too heavy in the recesses. But those will be tidied up anyway with a wash that I'll put on later into the recesses, just taking my time to add those darker colours into the recesses, and that way then you'll get a more like, you can see the orange down here, you know, between his armor plates, and the orange sort of in here. That's just an ink wash, and I'm using a mid brown from Army Painter to get that with a dollop and a little bit of water so it runs away from the edges, and that just then gives you the outline. Now this is the longest part, is getting this, because of course you don't want it to spill over, but once it does spill over you can just add and take the water away, and it just gives you a little bit of shading underneath the arms and things like that. So yeah, as you can see. So I'll come back to when I've finished doing the yellow all over, and you can have a look at them then. So that's my first mini done. So that's the first one done. I was able to get a nice yellow all over it. The arms do come off. Camera, stop tracking. What you doing to me? Okay, no, tracking off. Thank you. So yeah, as you can see, I got the nice yellow all over it. Now you will see bits of white still. That's fine. They're your edge highlighting stuff. That's where you're going to put a different colour, or that's where the ink's going to go. So don't worry about if you can see these pieces I've missed. They're going to get covered up by a different colour anyway. So yeah, that's the generic yellow done. Okay, still looks a bit orange, but when you start adding the darker colors around it, the yellow starts to pop a bit more. You know, a bit more like this, it will start to pop, and you'll be able to see the yellow come through a little bit more. Okay, so that's the first stage done. Now what you want to do is you want to do this on every single mini before moving on, just to batch paint, or you can concentrate. So there's my second one done, and I'll move on and get the rest of them all batch painted as yellow first, and then moving on to the highlighting part of it. And this just gives you more of a consistency in the yellow on every model in the unit. Or if you're doing individual characters, you can go straight on to doing the detail. But if you batch paint at the same time a certain particular color on every model, you get more consistency between the squad. I found anyway, you know, throughout that painting experience anyway. Done the next step, which is just to dry brush the yellow on every part of the armor we want to be yellow. Yes, I realized I've done the sergeant's helmet yellow, so I'll dry brush that back to red in a moment. But I just wanted to show off some aspects of the minis. So as you can, I don't know if you can see, you definitely be able to see in real life if you had it in front of you, but you can just see if I can get a stick. Where's a stick? Let's get a stick. There we go. Oh, a paintbrush actually with a nice tip on it will do just nicely. Okay, so this happens if you're using a spray paint, and you'll just notice on the back of the backpack there, come on paintbrush, yeah, there, along this line here, the ridge, you know, there's a slightly different texture, and that's because I've spray painted it and a bit too much paint have landed there. So the yellow sticks out a little bit. This ain't much of a difficult, you know, an issue, and you'll notice down the backpack isn't as white, so you've got more dark spaces. But that's fine, because when you put your wash on or your inks and you're just trying to get the mini on the table, you know, and it comes practice, hopefully you'll enjoy the miniature coming together once all the edge highlighting and stuff like that gets put on. So that's the yellow done. It's a nice yellow. I mean, it's still not quite up there yet to be finished, but you can see that it's not far off now. And that's, you know, essentially 3 steps. Mini built, mini primed, white, mini dry brush yellow all over the places where I think the yellow, the armor, and then make sure you batch paint it so you don't get one sticking out a little bit darker than the other. This had 2 coats, or this was my first mini, sorry, it wasn't 2 coats. This was the first mini I did, and it's got a little bit heavier because I wasn't dry brushing properly, so it's a little bit heavier on there, and that's just practice. That's a little bit darker than the rest of them, but that'll come together with all the additional parts that you add on there, the different colors for the weapon systems, the golds, the silvers, the reds, and any other oranges and things like that. Okay, so that's that step. It's dry brushed. All the miniatures are now ready to be highlighted, or the reds and the silvers. So my next step I generally do is I'll do all the reds, I'll do the eyes, I'll do all the reds, all the silvers, and then I will move on to doing all the blacks for the weapon outlets and things like that. And once all that's done, the washes, the last thing I do is generally the washes, and then I do a touch up anything that I've missed. So we'll get into that now. And of course, yeah, the last thing you do is your transfers, but yeah, so the washes will go last, and then the transfers. And there's one thing that a lot of professional painters out there will tell you is you need to stop touching your model with your fingers, you know, because once you start touching your model with your fingers, once you've got your first layer on, all that's going to happen is you are going to be touching your model, and you're going to take the paint that you put off on the model off, because you'll rub it off. The worst thing you can do is then transfer paint that's on your fingers that you've got from a red somewhere that you've accidentally put on it, then you've grabbed another mini and then you put a red mark all over the mini, you know. And this happens a lot more than you actually think. So there's a couple of tips that you can use. You can try and blue tack a part of the mini that you're never going to use, like this one, and then you can work on your mini that way. You know, this takes a lot of skill though. You know, I am not quite there yet at this sort of stage, being able to paint my mini on this. I'm a much prefer to have the mini right up against my face, you know, an inch away from it with the paintbrush, you know, trying to do all this detail type stuff. So there's that. And then there's a lot of people that will say you need to have either a mini holder, or yeah, I've got a paint pot with some blue tack on, and then you can use that without touching your mini again by just manipulating what it's standing on. And this works quite well, but again, I'm a it's got to be in my face like an inch away. So I struggle using these sort of methods personally. But if you really want to get good, yeah, definitely worth listening to those that are the best in the world, that do what they do for a living, and they tell us that this is the way to go. So why not, listen to them, that is. So the colour I'm using at the moment is McFiston Red from GW. It is watered down. I'll probably do a couple of layers, put the wash on after. I'm just trying to take my time. This is the hardest part now of painting the yellow, is that whatever you put on top of yellow now, without going back to a base coat white, you can't just take the yellow and go over the top of your mistake. And that's a pain in the arse, but that's the choice of yellow for you. If I got any advice about painting yellow, is don't go for a purple or a blue or a green or anything else but yellow and white, because if you do make a mistake, they're virtually impossible to just whack on the color from the original base layer and it'll blend in, because it won't. So that's what I suggest you doing. So here's one I've done already, and this is the just the arms. Take them apart. All of my bolters that I paint, they've got this like little hand grip underneath, are all red. That's uniform all across the board, and that's just to let my army then have some continuity within the whole weapon systems they use. If you can't see it very well, I'm sorry, but just underneath the hand grip, all of their little hand grips are all red, on top of having their shoulder pads all red as well. And their Aquila on the front of their armor is all red, and I'll vary the purity seals. I'll use greens, blues and purples and yellows and oranges, because in my opinion, not every single wax purity seal is going to be red, in my opinion, and there are other ones and different ones out there, so try and vary it up. Okay, I'll come back once I've done all the red bits, and I'll show you what the minis look like after that. So this is the stage where we were doing all the silver stuff. So all the minis now have had their basic layer of silver on all the areas that I believe needed to be silver, that I thought that I could put some wash on to wash it down. So I went over and did the minis. Now I haven't done the guns yet, so I'll do them black first and then go back over with the silver. So there you go, that's all the silver bits done and all the minis. On the backpacks where I thought the silver was going to go and things like that. So the next step I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint all the eyes green, because I like green eyes on the yellow, it looks nice. I'll come back, I'll also do all the weapons black, and then I'll come back to show you what parts of the guns I'm going to be painting silver, just to give the contrast between the black and the silver. So yeah, we'll come back to you in a few moments with them painted up. Just finished the black. I know they look a bit crude, the black looks a bit crude on them, and it's just slapped on. This is the first layer. Of course there will be a second layer after I've done the silver. This is just to give you an outline of where the black is, to bring the model together. It gives you a bit of a step to where the silver is going to go, and that way then when you do put the silver on, you can see the silver going on. I personally find, anyway, I find the silver going on to black is easier than onto a full white. So the silver will go on, then I can go back over where I've made the mistake with the silver with the black, and then there's less mistakes overall throughout the process. I find that just a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do with my thunder hammer that you can see, which is just a roller cool, is I'm going to probably copy the thunder hammer that I have here on my chapter master. So I'm going to go with a slightly brown wash, and then the blue hammer with some lightning, silver skulls, and then the black head with the yellow protection sleeve. So I'll do that on here. I'm going to start with the blue first, then put the black, and then do the brown. So that's what I'll do. I'll give you an update on that, how that's going. I do have a strap as well on this mini here, so we'll do that brown as well, a leathery type look. So yeah, that's the black on the minis. I'll do the silver. The wash comes last, because I'll do the wash all together, and you'll see how that is. That brings the model together. Really, the definition of the model then starts to stand out once you've done all your layers, and you've got your colors where you want them to be, and then your washes will in my opinion, bring the model together. It sort of blends the colours into one, so there's a transition, which looks really nice. Now other professionals will create that transition themselves just by using different colours on their palettes and mixing the colours as they graduate through the light on the models. I'm not quite there yet. I hope that one day I can produce that sort of quality in the future, maybe another 5 years of practicing with the colours I'm using, and then branching out onto different colours always helps. So that's the black. We'll come back after I've done the silver, and then it's the Thunderhammer will be done as well at that stage, and then we'll go into the washes. So I finished off all the silver bits on the weapon systems, the armor, the hammer, that sort of thing. They look really quite messy. I've added a bit of gold to some bullets. You know, they're quite messy at the moment. Nothing really is shockingly good about the miniature. It's all a bit all over the place, black and silvers and things like that. But what I can do now is, with a bit of wash, is tidy all of those edges up, and they'll just blend really nicely together. So that's the next stage now, is to put all the wash on. So the wash I've got, and I think I've showed you this already, but it's the mid brown from Army Wash, and it comes out like an orange essentially once you've thinned it down a little bit, and then dark tone, which is a black. And again, once it's toned down, you get a little bit of a gloss shine on the weapon system, which is quite nice, and it just takes those reds down to like almost a burgundy look. You know, considering that's the red there, it will go to a burgundy look once it's had the black wash on. We've now done all of the washes on the black, and as you can see now, the metal has started to, you know, blend with the black much better, and we get this shiny look. Some of you might not like the shiny look. I quite like it. Looks like they've maintained it and oiled it just before battle. So yeah, that's pretty much now all the silver bits on the model have been toned down a little bit, you know, made it look like they're not as, you know, they're not shiny anymore. So that's a good thing. That's just with the wash I've used, and I've started to implement some of the brown, the orange sort of wash on the models as well. Now let's see if I can find one. So yeah, so that's pretty much what the model looks like without the wash. So you might be able to just see there's no wash on the legs or anything. Yeah, and then once you, I mean, you have to be very careful to only put a little bit in, but as you can see, it just starts to pick out the model's highlighted edges, and this takes the longest part, because you're trying to put as little as possible on the model at the same time trying to highlight it still. So it does take some time. As you can see, that, sorry, my arm. So as you can see, I haven't put any wash inside his wrist there, just in here, but on this one I have, and they just, you know, it just makes it pop a little bit better. Come on, you know, as you can just tell, yeah, it makes it pop a little bit more, and the inside, and you know, around the arms, you can just tell that it makes it shades it, gives it a bit more definition, and that's what we're looking for, the definition. So the sergeant had his Thunderhammer done blue and just a wash and a bit of silver. I've got a bit of brown on there as well. So yeah, so his Thunderhammer's now done, in my opinion. I mean, it's simple, it's effective, it looks different. I haven't got the technique down to a T yet to do the lightning going through it yet. I'm still practicing on certain models, but yeah, his red helmet, slightly different red to the chest plate. So I used a blood red, which used to be the old Fiston red essentially. So blood red for his helmet, and then, you know, that had, you know, a wash on it, but it's got a different tint to it, so it just stands out a little bit more than their shoulder pads and the Aquila, you know. So yeah, so now I pretty much now got all of those bits done. It's now just highlighting the armor itself with the brown wash, and then tidying up any of the model along the way. And once all the brown, the mid wash brown has been put on the models, it's then going into tidying up and just making sure all the pieces fit together. So I've done some work on the helmet already on this one. So, you know, just working a little bit of wash onto those extra lines where the helmet is, Really does bring the helmet out, you see, just considering, and we compare it to this model that has no shading, no wash on it, to this one with its wash. Yes, it tones it down a little bit, but if you're careful where you put the wash, you can really just emphasize the lines on it. So yeah, so that's what we'll be doing now today, or the next couple of hours, just making sure that's all down. So I'll catch you in a little bit to show you off what I've been doing once I've finished there. Just finished putting the sergeant together now, so that's him all glued up, ready to rock and roll. His icon insignia of the Imperial Fist is on his shoulder pad. I've touched up some areas that I thought had been rubbed off by my fingers by handing it. So that's him done. All the other models I will do very similar to this. He's not perfect. He's not 100%. He's not the way I hoped him to turn out, but I'm happy with the progress. Every day is a learning day. I've learned a lot from this painting experience with him. I've learned a lot from the model creation. It is just a rule of cool with the Thunderhammer. Heavy intercessors cannot take them yet. I don't know anything in the future. It's not like an insider note that I know, but I just thought he looked cool. He stands out. He's got a Thunderhammer. Why not? So that's the unit done. Hopefully you'll see it on a battle report coming up soon. They're stapling my army now. And these are the assault bolter ones. So, they're not fantastically powerful, but considering it's a backfield holding unit who's got a little bit more mobility and can still fire, why not? So yeah, that's the heavy intercessors done. I hope you enjoyed the process that I've taken. Hope you enjoyed watching it. Hope you learned something. If you've got any questions, drop it in the comments. I've still got the decals to put on the other side, but I'm sure you don't need to watch that really of me putting decals on. So hopefully I'll do another one similar. I don't know, maybe I'll show off, maybe I'll just show off my Gladiator now. So the process that I've done today, or what you've seen on the video anyway, is exactly the same process I've done here. And this is a vehicle. So yes, so this was sprayed, and then this is all hand painted. There's no apart from obviously the white primer I used, this is all hand painted with the same technique as I did with the yellow and the washes. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy that. I mean, it's not perfect. Again, I can see some areas I'm like, I wish I'd done that differently. The transfers on this are not perfect either, but I'm happy the way that it turned out, considering it's a yellow, and yellow is extremely hard to get right because it's so hard to highlight. That's the issue. Yellow is so hard to highlight because there's not much that goes on top of yellow that looks like a highlight, should we say, unless you starting with a very dark orange, which is fine if that's the way you want to turn it out, and then the yellow is the highlight on top of the model. So each to their own. I like the way I do mine. I like the way mine looks, so hopefully you do too, and hopefully that helps with anybody out there trying to do an Imperial Fist army. I think it's a very simple technique. It gets results. It's not perfect. It's something to work on, and it just creates that painting skill that I want to develop over time to put towards other projects that I have in mind. So thanks for tuning in. Drop us a like, comment and share down below. Any questions, just drop it in and I'll add them together for a Q&A in the future. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So catch you all later. Bye bye.